The news cycle seems to be churning in circles, and it's clear that we're witnessing the final days of the Babylonian fake government of the United States and Israel. This is an objective truth now. But let's think about what we just saw. For example, we just saw the so-called Democratic National Convention supposedly select Kamala Harris as their presidential candidate. This was a complete fraud, as I think most people are aware of now, and it was just done to gather money. And of course, they cannot put her in front of an audience or in front of a real press conference or a real debate because she's brainless. And instead, they're talking about how it's all just going to be a symbol of freedom and hope and whatever. But it's corporate fakery and propaganda. Now, of course, everyone's saying then the alternative is Donald J. Trump. And certainly, he's the lesser of two evils. There can be no doubt about it. And now we're hearing that Robert F. Kennedy is going to join him and maybe give him a job as Attorney General. But again, it's not going to be enough. The fact is that Trump does not talk about a jubilee. He does not talk about war crimes tribunals for the just completed mass murder of tens of millions of people with vaccines. He's certainly not talking about the pedophile criminal regime in Israel that claims that they can rape and murder people who are not members of their tribe because they're allowed to. This is not how it's going to work. Now, the Israelis were in secret negotiations, and they're supposedly, they're asked, they had to publicly remove Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Zelensky and put them on trial for war crimes. They balked. And at this point, I think it's very clear that Turkey, Iran, and Egypt need to move in to Israel and remove the criminals. We're not talking about the Jews. We're talking about the Satan-worshiping leadership who have enslaved the Jews and brainwashed them. And I say to President Sisi of Egypt, don't worry about money. If you send your army into Israel, you can get all the money you want. So don't let them, threaten you into obedience by threatening to cut off your money. It's all just fakery anyway. The rest of the world will keep Egypt going. So don't worry about that threat. And the other thing that people need to understand is Israel does not have a Samsung option. They do not have the ability to set off their nuclear war weapons and destroy the world. That's just not true anymore. And they know that if they try something like that, that Jerusalem and Tel Aviv will be obliterated. In fact, the entire country will be obliterated with nuclear weapons, as will New York and probably Geneva. So they know that's not an option. Their only option at this point is to surrender and accept the creation of a genuine Jewish state of Judea that would include the native Judeans, who are misleadingly called Palestinians. That's the only option that's going to work. At this point, we need kinetic action, and that is happening. I've noticed that the Susan Wojcicki, the head of Google, of YouTube, died supposedly of cancer, and her son died. She was the wife of Sergey Brin, who has been identified as the leading Satanist now, and he's on the run. I think that probably, I don't know, I'm speculating, I don't have any inside information, but I'm assuming Wojcicki was taken in and questioned to try to locate Brin because he's a hunted man, as are David Rockefeller Jr. and all members of that clan who are responsible for literally hundreds of millions of deaths. That whole Rockefeller clan with their pharmaceutical, cancer, etc. business have murdered hundreds of millions of people. And the important thing that people need to understand is that the only way we're going to end this is if we remove their control of the corporations. I cannot emphasize this strongly enough, but the Swiss study and many other forensic studies show that 90% of transnational corporations are run by 700 individuals who report to this small family group. And we need an audit so that we can separate genuine entrepreneurs who got rich by creating value from people who use central bank fraud, creating money out of nothing to take over vast sections of the economy. And the ones who use fraud will have to have that returned, taken away from them, and genuine entrepreneurs will be protected. But that's what we need to do, and I don't see that being talked about in any of these so-called presidential debates. I think this is the end of a system, the end of an era, and I don't see any way they're going to get around this. I know they're going to try. They say there's a Donald Trump who's in Mount Cheyenne, who's leading the Space Force and the White Hats. My source is a relative of, well, I won't mention his name, but I have gone to physically meet him, and I've seen pictures of him with all the U.S. presidents, and he is connected to Antarctica. And someone, who on my site as Winlander is going to meet him on the 25th. We'll have more information there, but clearly the current Western paradigm is broken, and it cannot be fixed with, tax cuts or a little bit of fine-tune adjustment. It needs to be completely rebooted. And the fact that the so-called Kamala show was aggressively brown-nosing to China shows why we need to reboot. The fact is that China is using the scientific method and logic and the will of their people to decide what sort of future they make. And as an example, they decided to go ahead with solar power. Now, solar power was hampered for decades in the West by the oil industry because they didn't want competition. And now China, it produces the equivalent of 5 nuclear power plants worth of solar panels every week. They're leaving us behind in the dust. And the next thing they're going to do, and this is what happens when you follow the truth and not corporate greed, is they're going for hydrogen. And I mean it. If the West does not immediately nationalize the fraudulently obtained corporations and completely revamp its economic and social planning system, we're all going to be surviving on crumbs given to us by the Chinese. This is urgent. We cannot put it off any further. The fact is that the current Western leadership has been promoting disease. Everywhere they control, the population is not replacing itself. People don't want to have children. They're being poisoned. It's a criminal thing, and it cannot go any longer. And this is going to require military action. Now, there's a lot, of course, because it's military, we cannot tell our plans in advance. But I guarantee you the U.S. military does not work for Israel, and they're not going to fight for the Khazarian mafia. It's game over, folks. And I'll wait until September myself, because let's see what they promise on August 25th and other things. But starting September, there will be more kinetic action. But it is already underway. So hang in there, folks. This cannot last forever. It's imploding. And hopefully it will be a controlled implosion and it will be replaced by something much better. If not, and I feel very sorry for the American people, because they're headed for anarchy, hardship, chaos as the current system collapses. And it will collapse. It's mathematically doomed. You cannot deny reality. You cannot print money and put it in computers and pretend that's real. You cannot eat zeros on computers. So it is over. Physically, it's over. And hopefully there will be a smooth transition. But if not, the rest of the world has already moved on. 159 countries, probably more now, have agreed to a new collective security system and a new currency. So the final rump of Khazarian mafia-controlled Western countries is headed for extreme hardship unless they hurry up and cut a deal while they still can. Okay, well, that's what I have to say for myself today. Now I'd like to answer questions from readers and viewers.
Hi, Ben. We have our first question for today. What are the chances of a latent tsunami hitting the Japanese region after the big HAARP beam that hit last August 9th on the anniversary of Hiroshima?
They threatened to hit the Nankai Trough and threaten Japan with tsunami weapons, but it's not a one-way street. Remember, immediately after the Fukushima terror attack, there were hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes recorded on La Palma. If you hit Japan, we'll hit you back with a 100-meter tsunami that'll hit the southern coast of Europe and the east coast of the United States. So take your threats and stick them where the sun doesn't shine. Next question.
Hi, Ben. How come Bill Gates is still alive, or his avatar? I see his money, his monkeypox vaccine company he invested in a year ago will no doubt make him millions and millions of dollars by killing people. How is this fair?
It's not fair, and I have consistently called for his arrest, and there are actually arrest warrants out for him. He is a mass murderer. I keep hearing reports that he has been arrested and killed, but I don't believe him. But clearly, we need to send special forces into his known residences and to Microsoft headquarters. He needs to be located and brought to justice. And more importantly, the entire sort of money-generating mechanism that Microsoft represents needs to be nationalized and put under the control of people before it can be once again privatized in a healthy manner. Right now, it represents a huge money creation machine for an evil group, and that needs to be taken away from them. So, again, we need to take away their control of corporations like Microsoft and Google in order to end this. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Says, I have some doubts that Trump is really a white hat. He is allegedly meeting with Netanyahu. Of course, I would like your opinion, but I don't want to vote in another rigged election for someone who supports the KM Zionists.
Again, I get so many mixed signals about Donald Trump. This Space Force guy who's met all the various presidents and who's been to Antarctica, tells me there are 3 Donald Trumps. There's the real one who's in Mount Cheyenne, directing the military white hats, and then he has an avatar who appears in front of the public, and then they have an evil one working for the black hats. That's what they say, but my understanding is that the original Donald Trump actually died in the 1980s. So I'm getting more and more cynical about this. Again, I prefer someone like Field Marshal Douglas McGregor, who's a genuine human being, to be put in charge and not go for this Trump. But definitely, as things stand, he is the lesser of 2 evils. Next question.
Hi, Ben. Which Trump had the conversation with Musk? The things he spoke of seemed to be rather white hat orientated. Also, do you see Elon as a good guy?
Clearly, the Trump who was speaking with Elon Musk was the one that we were told was working as an avatar for the real Trump who's in Mount Cheyenne with the military white hats. At least that's what they're telling me. I haven't personally been to Mount Cheyenne and seen that. As far as Elon Musk is concerned, he was sitting on the fence for a long time, but he is definitely now working towards promoting the truth through X, and my own Russian sources tell me he represents the National Reconnaissance Organization, which is the military white hats. Having said that, I've tried to get an interview with Elon Musk, and I think he's still too scared to talk to a genuine truth seeker like me or Henry Makow, and he's definitely he needs to be more forthcoming. But my understanding is that he's the son of Werner von Braun, the Nazi rocket scientist, and he represents the Nazi good guys in the Secret Space Force. But again, I haven't actually confirmed that he physically exists either. I haven't met someone in person who's met him in person. So there are a lot of question marks about him, but clearly the platform X is now being used to disseminate truth, and I support that. And I hope that he is more forthcoming in the future. And I, once again, extend an invitation to him to have an interview with me. Okay, well, that's all for now, folks. And next week will be September, and hopefully there'll be some real action starting then.